What kind of person brags about firing someone just to look tough? That's the question that kept playing in Lionel Landry's mind the moment he heard it, but back then, he was just a janitor named Rick. 3 years ago, Lionel bought the 12-location discount warehouse chain from a retiring owner. It was a solid business, but lately something fell off. Store 12 in Eastgate had been bleeding workers. High turnover, piles of customer complaints, and quiet murmurs from the district manager saying, "It's just a rough location." Lionel didn't buy excuses. He never had. So, he grabbed an old mop, shaved his beard, put on thick-rimmed glasses, and wore a faded blue janitor's uniform stitched with a name tag. Rick. The disguise was good. He even changed his voice a little, slowed his speech, and slouched his shoulders. No one had ever met the CEO in person at Store 12. With over 300 employees across the chain, it was easy to blend in. He walked in on a Monday morning, pushing a mop bucket unnoticed. "Hey, new guy," said a stocky man near the employee break room, holding a clipboard.
Lionel nodded. "Yeah, Rick.
"They sent me from Store 6. Staff shortage here, right?" The man who introduced himself as Dwayne, the store manager, snorted. "Staff shortage is putting it lightly. People keep quitting or getting canned. Fastest revolving door in the company. Just stay out of the way, all right? Clock's over there." Lionel nodded and got to work. The first 2 days passed in a blur. He scrubbed grime off bathroom tiles, dumped trash, and swept the warehouse floor. What he noticed more than anything was the tension. Workers barely smiled. Some whispered. Others moved like they were on edge. It wasn't just the work, it was the air. Heavy. Nervous. He met a few faces that stood out. Trina Rosewood, a single mom working the register, always greeted customers with a tired but sincere smile. When a boy dropped a jar of pickles, she knelt beside him, helped him up, and said, "You okay, buddy?" before even looking at the mess. Then there was Omar, a quiet guy from night shift who restocked shelves faster than anyone. He offered Lionel half his sandwich during break without a word. But the worst came on Wednesday. It was nearly closing. Lionel was in the loading dock behind the building, sweeping up packing foam. The security office door was cracked open. Inside, 2 guards were laughing loud. "I told you, man," one said between chuckles. She started crying and I said, "Too late now, shoulda smiled more." Then boom, badge gone. Walk her out. "No way," the other one howled. "You actually said that?" "Hell yeah, I did. District told us to cut loose the weak ones." "Told Dwayne too. I just helped push it along." "What was her name again?" "Tony." "You mean the girl with the limp?"
"Yep.
Her."
Lionel froze.
His hand gripped the mop handle tighter. They were bragging about firing someone. Someone with a limp. For not smiling enough? He stepped closer. The door creaked. "Shut it. Someone's out there," one of them muttered. "Just the janitor." Lionel leaned his mop against the wall and quietly walked away. But inside, he was burning. He didn't know Tony, but he knew enough. That kind of power trip wasn't just cruel, it was dangerous. Back in the break room, he sat next to Trina. "Did someone named Tony used to work here?" he asked. Trina looked up, surprised. "Yeah." "Why?" "Just heard her name. She was sweet. Had a bad leg from a car wreck last year. Quiet girl. Always early. They said she was let go for attendance, but I don't know. Something fell off." Lionel nodded slowly. What kind of place had this become? He watched the guards that night. They strutted around like they owned the place. Lionel noticed how they barked orders at younger employees, even outside their job. At one point, one of them shoved a teen employee for blocking the hallway with a cart. No one said anything. That night, Lionel sat in the back parking lot in his car, staring at the wheel. His disguise was working, but what he saw today made him sick. He checked the employee files. When he got home, Tony had 0 write-ups.
"No warnings.
Terminated after 1 missed shift." He rubbed his face. This was more than a staffing issue. It was a culture problem. Plain and ugly. Tomorrow, he'd dig deeper. And if what he suspected was true, those guards weren't just going to lose their little kingdom. They were going to answer to the man who built it. Thursday started with rain. A steady, gray drizzle that soaked the loading dock and turned the front parking lot into a puddled mess. Lionel arrived just after 6, earlier than usual, hoping to see how the store opened. He stood near the time clock, pretending to fumble with his ID badge, while watching who came in and who didn't. At 6:15, Dwayne arrived, holding a to-go cup and wearing a black windbreaker with a red stain near the sleeve. His eyes scanned the floor like he expected someone to be missing. "Where's that kid from Carts?" he asked no one in particular. A young woman named Ellie, who worked in produce, tilted her head. "Which one?" "Marcus."
Yeah.
He didn't call out. Again. She shrugged without looking up from the avocado bin. Dwayne grunted and walked away. Lionel followed the shift quietly, sticking to corners and listening more than speaking. Around 8, he saw something that made him stop mid-mop. A kid, maybe 16, 17, stood near the broom closet with his hands jammed in his pockets, shoulders tight. His name tag read Marcus. His eyes darted around like he wasn't sure if he should be there. Lionel walked over slowly. "You all right?" The kid flinched. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just waiting." "For what?"
Dwayne.
"I was supposed to talk to him before clocking in." Lionel leaned on the mop. "You missed a shift?" Marcus hesitated.
2.
"My brother got into some trouble. Cops came to the house. It was a mess. I just forgot to call." At that moment, Dwayne appeared from the back hallway. His pace quickened when he saw Marcus. "You're done," he said flatly. Marcus stood straighter. "I came to explain. You should have called. You didn't. You're off the schedule." "I didn't mean." "Not my problem. You're not reliable." Lionel stepped back, watching. Dwayne didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Each word was final, clipped, and clean. Marcus stared at the floor, nodded once, and walked out. Dwayne turned to Lionel. "You see that? That's what happens when they think they can just disappear and stroll back in." Lionel didn't respond. He just picked up his mop. By lunchtime, the warehouse buzzed with tension again. An older cashier named Reggie was arguing with one of the guards, Mitch, the taller one. Something about a missing wallet. Mitch kept pointing to a sign by the break room that read, "Not responsible for lost or stolen items." "It was in my locker," Reggie said, voice low but firm. "And the lock's busted." "Maybe you forgot to lock it. Been working here 8 years. I know when I lock something." "Then maybe someone else got a key." "Don't look at me." Reggie clenched his jaw and turned away. Lionel approached him later in the back hallway when the crowd had thinned. "You okay?" Reggie looked at him, eyes tired. "They don't care. They never report this stuff. Just brush it off." Last month someone had their tires slashed out front. Guess what they said? "Park somewhere else next time." Management didn't do anything? They asked if she had enemies. Lionel nodded once, not saying anything else. That afternoon, he volunteered to help unload the new shipment. It wasn't part of his job, but it gave him a reason to be near the back office. He wanted to see what Dwayne and the guards did when they thought no one was watching. Boxes were stacked in the hallway, and Lionel bent low behind them, listening through the cracked door. "We're gonna need to move someone up," Dwayne said. "Trina's asking for Sundays off again." "She say why?" "Some daycare thing. Doesn't matter. I'm not changing the schedule every week." Mitch laughed. "Write her up. 3rd warning sends her out." "You think I won't?"
Do it.
"She's nice, but she's not untouchable." Lionel stood up slowly, walked away, and didn't look back. That evening, he found Trina near the front registers, refolding a pile of towels a customer had left in disarray. "You working this Sunday?" he asked. She sighed. "I was supposed to be off. My sitter's out of town, and I can't leave my daughter with anyone else. I told Dwayne last week. He said anything yet?
No.
But I saw next week's schedule. My name's still there. Talk to him. I tried. He said it was final. Lionel stared at the folded towels. What happens if you can't come in? I don't know.
Guess I find out.
He didn't say anything else. He couldn't, not yet. That night, Lionel didn't go straight home. He drove to the old Eastgate diner 2 blocks down. He ordered coffee, sat at the counter, and pulled out his phone. He typed in a few employee IDs. Reggie. Trina. Marcus. He pulled their files from the HR portal. Reggie had 0 write-ups. 8 years. Never late. Trina had 2 minor schedule change requests marked as unapproved. No warnings. No policy violations. Marcus's file had nothing at all. No contact. No documentation. Just a termination note. No show voluntary quit. He put the phone down. None of it added up. The next morning, Friday, he arrived before sunrise. He waited near the front entrance with a broom, pretending to sweep wet leaves into a plastic bag. Mitch and the second guard, Troy, pulled up together in a black SUV. Troy laughed as he stepped out. That kid yesterday? You see how fast he left. Mitch nodded. Didn't even argue. That's the best kind. Just roll over and go. Lionel didn't move. He didn't look at them. He let the wind carry their words into the back of his skull and settle there. Later that day, a young woman from seasonal help came out of the manager's office, pale and shaking. Lionel caught her by the vending machines, pretending to wipe down the glass. You all right? She wiped her eyes. I think I just got fired. I don't know. He said I wasn't a fit. I asked what that meant, and he said, you'll figure it out next time you apply somewhere. Lionel looked at her uniform. No stains. Her posture, polite. Her voice, soft. What's your name? He asked. Kayla. He nodded once. You did nothing wrong.
She didn't respond.
She just walked out the front door, still holding her badge. By the end of his shift, Lionel had seen enough. He clocked out, kept walking past the back lot, and turned down the alley behind the store. He pulled out his phone and called his executive assistant. Send me the security logs from the Eastgate store for the past month, he said. And I want the footage from the back hallway and locker room. All of it. She didn't ask questions. Just said, yes, sir, and hung up. By the time he reached his car, the rain was falling again. But this time, it didn't bother him. He wasn't just going to call them out. He was going to clean house. Lionel didn't sleep that Friday night. He sat in his home office, surrounded by spreadsheets, HR reports, and security footage pulled from the back hallway camera feeds. The Eastgate store's night logs were a mess: irregular sign-ins, missing incident reports, and at least 3 instances where store access logs didn't match employee schedules. But what struck him most were the clips. In one, Mitch patted a teenage employee on the shoulder while staring at her locker. In another, Troy held open the manager's door while Dwayne spoke to an employee with his arms folded and the door half shut. The audio didn't pick up the words, but the posture said enough. One-sided conversations. No documentation. No second person present. He closed the laptop around 4 in the morning and stared at his reflection in the dark window for a long time. That Saturday, Lionel didn't wear a uniform. He walked into the Eastgate store through the front entrance wearing a gray wool coat, clean shoes, and a look that didn't belong to a janitor. A few employees glanced at him, but didn't react. Most had never seen his face. Dwayne was in the office, talking to a vendor on speakerphone when Lionel walked past the break room.
He didn't stop.
Instead, he crossed to the back corner of the store, near electrical, where Mitch and Troy were posted. They leaned against the wall, both sipping coffee from branded paper cups. Lionel walked up and stopped in front of them, silent. Troy looked up first. You lost, man? Mitch glanced over. You need something? Lionel didn't answer. He stared at them for a few seconds, then pulled his ID badge from his coat pocket, and held it up. Neither of them spoke. He tucked it back into his coat and said, "I want your radios."
Now.
Troy blinked.
What?
"Your radios. Take them off." Mitch looked around, chuckled nervously. "Is this some kind of joke?" Lionel stepped forward. "Do I look like I'm joking?" They hesitated. Then, slowly, both removed their radios and placed them on a shelf behind them. "Now your store keys." Neither moved. "I suggest you don't test me," Lionel said, voice flat. Troy pulled his key ring from his belt and handed it over. Mitch followed. Lionel looked down at both sets, then handed them to a nearby department lead. "Take these to the front office. Lock them in the safe and wait for me." The employee nodded and walked off. Mitch finally spoke. "All right, I don't know what this is, but if you've got a problem, we can go through Dwayne." "You'll be going through HR," Lionel said. "But not before you answer a few questions." Troy folded his arms. "We've done everything by the book." "Which book is that?" Lionel asked. "The one where you fire employees without paperwork? Or the one where you brag about it in the security room?" Mitch opened his mouth, then closed it. "I've got 3 weeks of footage," Lionel continued. 3 weeks of you two inserting yourselves into situations where you had no business. Intimidating people. Laughing about terminations. What exactly do you think your role here is?" "We keep the store safe," Troy said, voice low. "From what? Teenagers? Single moms? Disabled employees?" Neither answered. Lionel stepped closer. "You've been treating this place like your personal turf. You've created an environment where people are afraid to speak up. That ends now. You're suspended effective immediately. You'll be contacted by corporate for formal interviews. Until then, do not return to this property." Mitch looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Lionel's expression stopped him. They turned and walked out through the front entrance, heads down. Lionel turned and started walking toward the office. On the way, he spotted Reggie near the freezer section and stopped. "You got a minute?" Reggie looked up.
Sure.
They stepped away from the aisle. "I'm Lionel Landry," he said. "I own the company." Reggie raised his eyebrows slowly. "You're the janitor." "I was. Now I'm here to fix what I saw." Reggie stood still, watching him carefully. "I overheard what happened with your wallet. That wasn't okay. I've already started a formal investigation, and I'd appreciate it if you'd give a written statement. Voluntarily. You won't be punished for anything." Reggie nodded once.
Yeah.
"I can do that." "Thank you," Lionel said, then turned and continued toward the office. Dwayne was still inside, scribbling on a clipboard, when Lionel opened the door without knocking. He looked up, irritated. "Can I help you?" "You can start by sitting down," Lionel said. Dwayne stared at him. "Who are you?" Lionel pulled the badge from his coat again and placed it on the desk. Dwayne's face changed. He sat. "I've been working this store for the last 5 days," Lionel said. "Janitor uniform. No one knew who I was. And what I saw concerns me." Dwayne swallowed. "Okay. I've counted 7 terminations over the last month.
No documentation. No HR signatures.
No second-person witnesses. Just you and sometimes the guards." Dwayne leaned back. "We've had staffing issues. Some people don't show up. Others." "Don't finish that sentence," Lionel interrupted. "I've already reviewed the files. If someone misses a shift, there's a process. A warning. A phone call. Not a silent removal." Dwayne held up his hands. "Look, we've been under pressure. The district office said we needed to tighten up, that we couldn't keep carrying dead weight." "I never said that." Dwayne hesitated. "You didn't."
But the tone changed.
"We took it to mean. You took it to mean you could run this place however you wanted. That you could hide behind policy and no one would notice." Dwayne was quiet. "I heard you talking about Trina," Lionel said. "You were planning to write her up for needing a day off. That's not leadership." That's laziness. She's not the only one who. I'm done listening to excuses, Lionel said. You're suspended. Effective immediately. You'll remain on payroll pending a full review of your employee management history. You are not to contact any staff. Dwayne's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Lionel stood. There's a regional manager arriving in 30 minutes to take over temporarily. You'll wait in this office until then. He left the room and closed the door behind him. By mid-afternoon, quiet spread through the store. Word traveled fast, but no one said much. Trina stood by the customer service desk, folding a flyer. Lionel approached her. I know who you are now, she said before he could speak. He nodded. I didn't think anyone upstairs noticed what was happening here, she said. I didn't either. That was the problem. She looked at him for a long moment. Is it really going to change? Yes, he said. Starting with you. You're getting Sundays off, permanently. And I'd like to promote you to assistant shift lead. If you're willing. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. I'm not promising perfection, he said. But I am promising that no one here is going to be invisible again. She nodded slowly. All right. He looked around the store. The air felt different already. There was still a lot to clean up. But for the first time in weeks, Lionel believed it could be done. The following Monday, Lionel returned to Eastgate, not in disguise, not undercover, just himself. He wore a simple charcoal sweater, no tie, no clipboard, no security detail. When he stepped into the store, the front lobby was quiet. A young employee at the returns desk glanced up, recognized him, then looked away quickly, unsure of how to react. Lionel gave a quiet nod and kept walking. The temporary manager, a soft-spoken man named Arthur Wells, met him near the back office with a clipboard under one arm. They've been on edge, Arthur said quietly, but no disruptions. Everyone showed up today, early even. I want to meet with every department lead, Lionel said. No conference room talk. I want to walk the floor with them. See what they see, how they run things. Arthur nodded and peeled off to make the arrangements. Lionel started with the warehouse team. He shadowed their shift lead, a woman named Carla, who had been working the loading dock for over a decade. She didn't try to impress him. She just kept moving, showing him how pallets were sorted, how deliveries often arrived late on Saturdays, and how they'd been short on scanners for months. This one's been glitchy since February, she said, tapping the screen of a handheld device. Sometimes it won't register at all. We have to key everything in manually when that happens. Did anyone report it? Every week. Just keeps getting pushed. Lionel made a note in his phone. We'll fix that. Today. Carla gave him a look that wasn't skeptical, just tired. I'll believe it when it shows up in my hand. He walked with her another 20 minutes, watching how she handled people. Direct but fair.
No wasted motion.
He asked her to sit in on upcoming staffing meetings. Not as a favor, because she clearly understood the rhythm of the place better than anyone in a suit ever would. Next, he met with the produce team. The section manager, a wiry man named Leonard, explained how shipments often arrived missing half of what was ordered. They had no consistent way to track where the fault lay: supplier, warehouse, or store-level receiving. I flagged it 6 times last quarter. We get half the romaine we're supposed to, throw out half the strawberries we do get, and then corporate asks why shrink is high. Lionel listened, asked what data Leonard had kept, then requested those reports be sent directly to his office, not filtered through the regional chain. In every section he visited, a new layer of dysfunction surfaced. Not chaos, not incompetence, just neglect. Systems were in place, but no one had been listening. Not really. In the employee break room, he sat at the far edge of a plastic table and introduced himself to 3 part-time staff during their lunch. One of them, a college student named Ava, mentioned she'd applied for full-time twice, but never heard back. I filled out the internal transfer form, gave it to the old manager. After that, nothing. Then I saw my same job posted online full-time, outside hire. Did you ask for follow-up? I did. I was told I wasn't the right fit. No explanation. And who told you that? I don't know his name.
Tall guy.
Security, I think. Lionel kept his expression neutral. Thank you for telling me. The quiet around the store had shifted. People weren't whispering anymore. They weren't exactly relaxed, but they weren't guarded either. It was as if someone had cracked open a window in a room that had been sealed for too long. Later that afternoon, he met with the HR compliance officer assigned to review Eastgate's personnel files. Her name was Marissa, and she carried a thin binder with flagged entries. There are irregularities in 15 terminations over the last 6 months, she said. No documented performance issues. No formal warnings. Some don't even have signatures from the terminated employee. Do any show the security staff as witnesses? 12 do. Lionel took the binder and flipped through it. Some of the names he recognized: Tony, Marcus, Kayla. Others he didn't. Every one of them had been removed quietly. No exit interview. No appeal process. I want all of them contacted, he said. Reach out directly. Offer reinstatement where appropriate. If they've moved on, send a letter. Not a form letter. A real one. Signed by me. Marissa nodded. Understood. He didn't stop there. Over the next 3 days, Lionel met with every employee who had remained under the prior management. He didn't ask them to rehash what had happened. He asked them what they needed now. Some wanted clearer scheduling. Others asked for basic things: fans in the stockroom, working printers at the register, protective gloves that didn't tear. Not one person asked for more money. That struck him. On Thursday afternoon, Trina found him near the seasonal aisle, where he was reviewing shelf layouts with Arthur. Can I borrow you for a minute? She asked. He followed her toward the back. She stopped near the utility closet where they used to keep the janitor supplies. I found something, she said, holding up an envelope. It was taped behind the fuse panel. It's addressed to whoever's next. He took it carefully and opened it. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper, written in blue ink. The handwriting was small and precise. I didn't know who to tell, it began. So, I'm writing this in case someone ever shows up who actually cares. The letter was from Tony. It detailed her final month at the store. How she was watched constantly. How her locker was opened twice without her knowing. How she was told she was a liability because of her limp. How she cried in the parking lot after being let go and no one asked if she had a way home. Lionel folded the letter and put it in his coat pocket. I'll make sure she hears from me directly, he said. Trina nodded once, then walked back to the front. That night, Lionel sat with the executive team on a video call. He didn't yell. He didn't lecture. He just laid out the facts. From now on, no termination happens without a second manager present. No write-up is valid unless it's signed by the employee and logged in the central system. Security staff are not to participate in any HR matters. Period. He paused. And all store managers will complete a leadership review course. Not optional. Not cosmetic. Anyone who resists it can find employment elsewhere. There was a long silence on the line. Then muted acknowledgments. The next morning, the scanner in Carla's hand beeped without delay. New units had arrived overnight. Leonard received a call from the supply chain director asking him to join a task force on shipment accuracy. Ava was offered a full-time position in the front-end team with back pay for the hours lost during the vacancy she had applied for. And a letter, handwritten and signed, arrived at Tony's last known address. Inside was a formal apology, a rehire offer, and a personal note inviting her to meet Lionel in person if she ever wanted to talk. By the end of the week, Store 12 no longer felt like the outlier in the chain. It felt like part of the company again. On Friday evening, Lionel stood in the back lot alone, watching the last shift change. Trina walked past on her way to her car. You still thinking about going undercover again? she asked with a quiet smile. Not if I can help it, he said. But I'll be back. Just not as a stranger. She nodded and kept walking. He looked up at the sky. The week had been long.
Hard.
But it had mattered. And he wasn't going to forget what it took to see the truth until he stood in it himself.